In 2007, a Congressional Oversight Committee published a report that most Americans never read. It contained a single line that, when extracted from the legal language surrounding it, said something extraordinary. The United States government was paying Blackwater USA $1,222 per day per guard to provide security in Iraq. That number deserves a moment. A United States Army soldier deployed to the same theater was costing the government approximately $150 per day, including benefits, training, equipment, and retirement obligations. Blackwater's price was not a mistake. It was not an anomaly. It was the business model. Private military contracting is an industry built on a simple economic principle. Governments need violence, but they do not always want to be seen providing it themselves. And where there is demand that governments cannot, or will not, meet through official channels, private markets will fill the gap. Blackwater was founded in 1997 by Eric Prince, a former Navy SEAL with a business idea and a family fortune to fund it. He purchased 6,000 acres of North Carolina swampland and built a private training facility. The first clients were law enforcement agencies. Within a decade, the United States State Department had signed contracts worth over $1 billion. The economics of that growth were not complicated. After the September 11th attacks, the United States deployed military and intelligence resources at a scale the official workforce could not sustain. Private contractors filled the gap, and they did not come cheap. The 2007 House Oversight Committee found that Blackwater's contracts were costing the government at minimum 6 times what the equivalent military personnel would have cost. For that premium, the government received something a military unit could not legally provide: insulation. Contractors are not subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They do not appear in official casualty counts. When things go wrong, the contractor absorbs the political damage, not the administration. The price of a private army includes, built into every invoice, the cost of deniability. There are 2 ways to build that army. One charges governments by the day, the other takes something worth far more. Understanding the difference between those 2 models is the only way to understand what is actually being bought and sold in the most profitable gray zone in modern warfare. On March 31st, 2004, 4 Blackwater contractors were driving through Fallujah, Iraq. Their names were Wesley Batalona, Scott Helvenston, Jerko Zovko, and Michael Teague. They were escorting kitchen equipment. Their convoy had inadequate armor, insufficient personnel, and no air support. They had flagged the route as dangerous before departure. Their warnings were documented. They were overruled. The convoy was ambushed. All 4 men were killed. The Fallujah ambush triggered the First Battle of Fallujah, a United States Marine assault on the city that became one of the most controversial military engagements of the Iraq War. But for the private military industry, the Fallujah ambush revealed something that had not yet been publicly processed. These men were not logistics staff. They were not civilian support workers. They were operators, former special operations personnel, armed, trained, and deployed in combat conditions, with no military chain of command, no legal status under the laws of war, and no government accountability structure if something went wrong. By 2010, that distinction had become a statistical reality that was impossible to ignore. For the first time in either the Iraq or Afghanistan conflict, the number of private contractor deaths exceeded the number of United States military deaths in the same theater. More contractors were dying than soldiers. And unlike soldiers, their deaths were not being counted in the official casualty figures that reached the American public. This is not a peripheral fact. It is the core product description of what governments are purchasing when they hire a private army. They are purchasing a workforce that can bleed and die in a theater of war, and whose casualties will not appear on the scoreboard that politicians are measured by. The price per day per guard includes that offset. It is priced in. This is the Western model. Clean invoices, legal ambiguity, government deniability, a service delivered at a premium, structured to minimize political exposure. It is not the only model. In 1993, a South African private military company called Executive Outcomes received a contract from the Angolan government. The government was fighting a brutal civil war against UNITA rebels. The Angolan military was losing. International intervention was politically impossible. Executive Outcomes was available. The company deployed approximately 500 personnel, former South African Special Forces, battle-tested and equipped with military-grade hardware. Within months, the rebels had been pushed back from the oil fields they had seized. The contract was fulfilled. Payment was not made entirely in cash. Executive Outcomes received a stake in the country's diamond and oil operations. 2 years later, Executive Outcomes repeated the model in Sierra Leone. 500 personnel against the Revolutionary United Front, a rebel group internationally notorious for systematic atrocities that had seized the country's diamond fields. Within 2 months of Executive Outcomes deployment, the capital was secured. Payment, again, included natural resource access. This is the second model of private military economics, not the transactional model. Charge by the day, deliver security, invoice the government. The extractive model, pay us in what your country is worth. The Wagner Group understood this arrangement completely. Russia's primary private military force, formally linked to Yevgeny Prigozhin, informally linked to the Kremlin, did not primarily seek government day rate contracts. It sought footholds. In the Central African Republic, Wagner arrived officially as a training mission. Within 2 years, it had secured operational control of gold and diamond mining operations through a company called Midas Resources. The gold extracted from those mines was, according to United States Treasury assessments, being funneled directly into financing Wagner's Ukraine operations. In Mali, Wagner arrived following a military coup. It provided security for the ruling junta. In return, it received operational latitude that included, according to United Nations investigators and Human Rights Watch, participation in the Mura massacre of 2022, in which over 500 civilians were killed over 4 days in what investigators described as one of the worst atrocities recorded in the Sahel in recent years. The Mura massacre was not a failure of the model. It was an expression of it. When your payment is a country's resources, and your security guarantee depends on eliminating anyone who might challenge the arrangement, the civilians who stand in the way become a line item. One model charges governments for security. The other charges countries for their futures. Every business model has failure modes. Private military companies have 3. The first is accountability. On September 16, 2007, Blackwater contractors opened fire at Nizor Square in Baghdad. 17 Iraqi civilians were killed. The contractors claimed they were responding to a threat. Witnesses, including United States military personnel present in the area, described the shooting as unprovoked. What followed was a legal process that lasted 17 years. United States federal courts initially convicted 4 contractors. The convictions were overturned on appeal. The case was retried. By the time any legal resolution was reached, the incident was over a decade old, and the company had rebranded twice. The accountability gap that made contractors valuable to governments their legal ambiguity made prosecuting them nearly impossible. Not a soldier, not a civilian. Something the legal system was not designed to process. The second failure mode is loyalty. On June 23, 2023, Yevgeny Prigozhin announced that Wagner Group forces were marching on Moscow, not toward a foreign battlefield, toward Russia's own capital. Prigozhin had spent months publicly feuding with Russian military leadership over the conduct of the war in Ukraine, and specifically over the catastrophic losses his forces had sustained at Bakhmut. Wagner had lost approximately 17,000 men taking that city. Many of them were prisoners recruited directly from Russian jails, given weapons, minimal training, and sent into some of the most intense urban combat of the war. Nearly 50,000 prisoners were recruited by Wagner for Ukraine operations in total. 17,000 of them died at Bakhmut alone. The march on Moscow was halted after approximately 24 hours. A deal was brokered. Prigozhin was exiled to Belarus. 2 months later, his private jet was shot down over Russia. All 10 people on board were killed. The third failure mode is the oldest one. Armies that answer to money can be bought, redirected, or removed when they become inconvenient. Prigozhin built one of the most effective private military organizations in modern history. He deployed it across 4 continents. He extracted resources, secured governments, and fought battles that regular armies could not or would not fight. And when he became a problem for the state that had enabled him, he was removed. Private military power has no constitutional protection. It has no institutional permanence. It exists at the pleasure of whoever holds the contract, and the patience of whoever holds the power above it. The private military and security services industry is currently valued at approximately $300 billion. By 2034, analysts project that figure will reach $451 billion, growing at a compound annual rate of nearly 6%. That growth is not driven by any single conflict. It is driven by the structural economics of modern warfare, governments that need security but want deniability, legal gray zones that make private provision attractive, and a geopolitical environment that creates continuous demand. Allied Universal is currently one of the largest private security employers on Earth. Its workforce exceeds 1,100,000 people. That makes it larger than the active duty military of every country in the world except the United States and China. Constellis, the company that absorbed the assets of Blackwater through several rounds of rebranding and restructuring, holds active contracts with the United States State Department and, as of 2026, with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The company has faced credit rating warnings from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's, suggesting its financial structure carries significant risk even as its government contract base remains substantial. The 2026 Iran conflict has accelerated demand across the industry. Private security and logistics contractors are being deployed across the Middle East at rates not seen since the early years of the Iraq War. The economics of that deployment are the same as they have always been. Governments are paying a premium for speed of deployment, for deniability, and for a casualty count that does not appear on the domestic political ledger. There are 2 ways to build a private army. One charges governments by the day. It delivers a service, manages legal exposure, and makes money on volume and premium pricing. Its failure modes are legal, accountability gaps that can, on rare occasions, become liabilities. The other takes what it needs directly from the countries it enters. Its failure modes are political. The moment it becomes a threat to the state that enabled it, the arrangement ends. Both models are currently operating. Both are expanding. The question is not whether private military power is legal. In most jurisdictions, in most forms, it is. The question is who it answers to. Because the answer to that question has never been the public. It has never been an elected body. It has never been accountable to the people in the territory where it operates. It answers to the entity that signs the contract. And in an industry worth $451 billion, there is no shortage of entities willing to sign.